So now we're going to work with problems that deal with consecutive integers. Okay, and so let's talk about first what are consecutive integers. The word consecutive is talking about it. These are like numbers that follow a sequence. So you're going straight from one number to the next and you follow that pattern. So like consecutive integers in general would be like if I had, I don't know, because it includes the negative, so you could have -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. Those are consecutive because you're going one right to the next, and those are following the pattern of just adding one. But also, if you look ahead at these problems, you're going to see sometimes they might say consecutive odd integers or consecutive even integers. And so consecutive odd would be the odd numbers in their sequence. So that would be if I did, like let me start with -3. So we got -3. The next odd number would be -1. And then you would have 1. And then you would have 3 and 5 and then 7 and so on and so forth. So notice these are the odd numbers that you're looking at that are consecutive because you go straight from one odd number to the next odd number. And then like consecutive even integers would be if I had, let me start with -4. So -4, -2, 0, 2, 4, 6, so on and so forth. Okay? And so those would be your consecutive even integers. Okay? So these problems will deal with those types of numbers, okay? And so these are still you're finding integers, but now you have to find the consecutive type integers, all right? So they're going to give you information and enough information to do that, all right? So in number 3 it says the sum of two consecutive odd integers is 36, all right? So remember, sum means add, so that means when you add up these two consecutive odd integers, it's going to equal 36. And then it's saying that they're consecutive odd integers. So that would be like this example right here that we talked about. And now you could probably figure that out just by trial and error. You can start listing out your odd integers and figure out which ones, when you add them together, equals 36. And so if I was just asking you to do that, then you could do that. Okay, but remember in these problems we're not only learning how to solve these problems, but you're learning how to set up equations to be able to solve them. Okay, because part of this class is learning how to set up equations. All right, so that's what we're doing. So putting our information together, we know that there's going to be two numbers that are consecutive odd integers that when I add them they equal 36. Okay. So we have to, like in the other problems, we have to put a variable to kind of represent our numbers because we don't know what those numbers are, okay? So if you think through, one of these numbers is going to be smaller than the next number. So we're looking for like what two numbers that follow one right after the other when I add them will give me 36, okay? So I'm going to say, let's say that we have our first odd integer that we're talking about. Okay, and then we have the next odd integer. Okay, because that's what consecutive means. All right, so the first odd integer I'm going to put a variable with, so I'm just going to put an x to be simple. All right, so that's my first odd integer. Now the next one has to be the very next odd number. So like if you look over here, what do I do to one of these odd numbers to get to the next one? So what do I do to 3 to get 5? What do I do to 5 to get 7? So on and so forth. And if you notice, there is a pattern. I'm actually adding 2 to go from one to the next. So to get to the next odd integer, I'm going to take that number and I'm going to add 2. So that's how they relate. Okay, so using that information, I know that if I add these two numbers up, it's going to give me 36. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my first odd integer and I'm going to add it to the next one. So that was this one. And when I add them up, it's going to equal 36. So now I have an equation and all I have to do is solve it. So I've got my like terms. So x plus x is 2x. bring down that 2, and then I keep solving. So I've got to subtract 2 from both sides, and then my 2x comes down. 36 minus 2 is 34. And then from there, I'm going to divide by 2 on each side, and x would equal 17. Okay, so when I go back over here and I look, this is why you always have to tell me what these variables mean. I notice that the x is my first odd integer, okay? And so to get the next number, because it says find the integers right here, to get the next one I have to add 2 to get that next odd integer. So the next one would be 19. So 17 and 19, notice they're consecutive odd integers, and when I add them up, I will get 36. And so that's how you know you're correct. All right, so let's do another one. So the next one says the sum of 2 consecutive even integers is 46. And you have to find the integers. Okay, so again, it's a sum problem. So when it says when you add these up, it has to equal 46. All right, so we can look at our examples over here and kind of figure out how they relate like we just did in this problem. So we're going to have our 2 integers. So we got the first, and this time they're even. So the first even integer. And then we're going to have the next even integer. Okay, so again, we don't really know what these numbers are. That's kind of the point in this problem, is to try to find them. And so I'm going to put a variable. So I'm going to put a variable to represent my first even integer. So I'm just going to put an x. And now let's figure out what you have to do to go from one integer, even integer, to the next. So if I look at my examples of even integers, what am I doing to go from one even integer to the next? And so notice, to go from 2 to 4, 4 to 6, or like if I back up a little bit, 0 to 2, or negative 2 to 0, you're actually adding 2 every time. And so even though it kind of seems weird, that it's the same pattern as the other one, it should make sense. So to get to the next even integer, I have to take this one and add 2. All right, so putting this together, and what they tell me up here, it says when I add them up, when I add those 2 consecutive even integers up, it should equal 46. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that one plus the next one, and then it should equal 46. And then again, I solve. So I've got my like terms. I've got 2x, and then that 2 comes down. And then from there, I've got to subtract my 2. So my 2x comes down, and then 46 minus 2 is 44. And then divide by 2 on both sides, and x would equal 22. And so when I go over here, I know that's my first even integer. And so to find the next one, I have to add 2. So 22 is the first one, and then 24 would be the next one. And you can check it. If you add those up, it should equal 46, and it does. So we're done.